A first-class ticket. A first-class humiliation. Serena Marshall was ready for her flight to London, but she wasn't ready for the gate agent who saw her as a criminal. When Alice Collins, an employee for Global Horizon Air, saw Serena's face, she made a decision. She loudly accused Serena of holding a fraudulent ticket, holding her up for the entire airport to see. She thought she was protecting the airline. She didn't know she had just accused its new owner. But the real twist, when the CEO finally arrived at the scene, he looked right at Serena and told her to step aside. What happened next wasn't just karma, it was a corporate reckoning. The fluorescent lights of John F. Kennedy International Airport's Terminal 4 hummed a tune of organized chaos. It was 6:05 p.m., and the cattle call for Global Horizon Air's Flight 110 to London Heathrow was in full swing. The air was thick with the smell of roasted coffee, designer perfume, and the faint, anxious sweat of travelers terrified of missing their connection. Serena Marshall stood back from the throng, observing. She was a woman who navigated the world with deliberate calm, a quality often mistaken for detachment. Today, she was dressed for a long-haul flight in a way that prioritized dignity and comfort. Dark, tailored yet stretchy trousers, a simple silk blouse, and a cashmere travel wrap draped over one arm. On her feet were expensive-looking but practical loafers. She wore no jewelry, save for a simple, elegant watch. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun. She looked professional, composed, and, to anyone paying attention, expensive. But in the chaotic ecosystem of an airport terminal, most people weren't paying attention. They were in their own bubbles of stress. The line for first class and priority boarding at Gate B Site 2 was shorter, but it was moving with agonizing slowness. At the helm of the podium was a woman whose name tag read Alice. Serena watched Alice Collins for 10 minutes before she even joined the line. Alice was a woman who seemed to be vibrating with a low-frequency resentment. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe, tight bun that seemed to be pulling her eyebrows into a permanent state of surprise and disapproval. Her uniform, while clean, was strained. She wielded her ticket scanner like a weapon. Serena watched as an elderly Indian couple, clearly flustered, approached the podium. The man presented his phone. "Paper," Alice snapped, not looking up. "We prefer paper boarding passes." "Oh, I am sorry," the man said, his accent rich and melodic. "We have it on the mobile. They said this was fine." "It's slower," Alice sighed, loud enough for the next 3 people in line to hear. She snatched the phone from his hand, her fingers jabbing at the screen. "You have to turn the brightness up. How am I supposed to scan this?" The woman beside him, his wife, flinched. Serena felt a familiar, dull ache in her chest, the ache of second-hand humiliation. Alice finally managed to scan the pass, thrusting the phone back at the man. Next. Serena decided it was time. She took a centering breath and stepped forward, placing her passport and her phone, screen already bright and QR code displayed, on the counter. Alice did not look at her. She was busy typing furiously into her terminal. "1 minute," she barked. Serena waited. A full minute passed. The final boarding call for economy passengers echoed through the concourse. Finally, Alice looked up. Her eyes, a flat, watery blue, raked over Serena. It wasn't a glance. It was an assessment, a categorization. Serena watched the subtle calculus happen behind those eyes, the plain blouse, the simple hair, the dark skin. "Can I help you?" Alice's voice was coated in a syrupy, insincere politeness that was somehow more insulting than her earlier rudeness. "Yes," Serena said, her voice even and clear. "Serena Marshall, Flight 110, Seat 1A. She gently pushed her phone and passport forward. Alice picked up the passport, flipping it open with a snap of her wrist. She stared at Serena's photo, then back at Serena's face. She did this 3 times. "Serena Marshall," Alice said, drawing the name out as if it tasted strange. She looked at the phone. "And this is your ticket?" "Yes. Seat 1A. 1A, Alice repeated, a small, knowing smirk playing on her lips. "That's the residence." "Yes, it is," Serena said, keeping her voice neutral. The residence was Global Horizon's most exclusive offering, a private 3-room suite at the front of the plane. It was, as Alice well knew, absurdly expensive, often costing more than a small car. "Right," Alice said. She picked up her scanner. "Let's just see about that." She held the scanner over the QR code. The scanner beeped, a sharp, negative error sound. Alice's smirk widened into a full-blown, triumphant smile. "Well, well, well," Alice said. And now her voice was loud, dangerously loud. The people in the line behind Serena, the passengers in the crowded gate area, all turned to look. "What seems to be the problem?" Serena asked, though her stomach had just dropped into her loafers. "The problem," Alice announced, "is that this ticket is fake." The words hung in the air, sharp and heavy as shrapnel. Fake. The ambient noise of the terminal, the rolling suitcases, the distant announcements, the chatter, seemed to hush, focusing all its energy on gate B42. Serena could feel a dozen pairs of eyes land on her back. "I beg your pardon?" Serena said, her voice dropping a full octave. It was a tone she reserved for boardroom negotiations that had just gone south. "I said," Alice repeated, relishing the moment. "This ticket is a fraud. It's not scanning. It's invalid." "That's impossible," Serena said, keeping her composure by a thread. "I booked it myself, directly through the Global Horizon Executive app. Perhaps you could try typing in the confirmation code manually." She slid the phone closer, her finger already pointing to the 6-digit alphanumeric code. Alice looked at the code and scoffed, physically pushing the phone back. "Mom, I know a fake ticket when I see one. You people try this all the time. You people." The phrase landed like a slap. Serena's blood went from cold to hot in a millisecond. She took a slow, deliberate breath, forcing herself to remain calm. An audience was the last thing she wanted. A scene was a loss, no matter the outcome. "Alice," Serena said, reading the name tag pointedly. "There is no you people. There is just me, Serena Marshall, a passenger with a valid ticket, and you, an employee who is making a very serious mistake. Please type in the code." Alice's face, which had been pale with a kind of smug righteousness, began to mottle with red. She felt challenged, she felt disrespected, and she felt deep down that this woman had no business being in seat 1A. Alice had worked this gate for 12 years. She'd checked in B-list actors, tech bros, and grumpy diplomats. She knew what first class looked like, and in her mind, this wasn't it. This woman was quiet, she was alone, and she was, well. "I'm not going to type in the code," Alice sneered. "Our security systems are designed to catch this. This QR code is a cheap forgery. Where did you even get this? Did you screenshot it from a website?" "I am the senior partner at Astria Capital," Serena said, her voice dangerously quiet. "I did not screenshot my ticket. Now for the last time, please do your job." The mention of Astria Capital meant nothing to Alice, but the authoritative tone did. It was a challenge to her power, and in her little kingdom of Gate B42, Alice Collins was the queen. "A senior partner," Alice laughed, a short, barking sound. "That's a good one, and I suppose that's a real passport too?" "It is," Serena said, gesturing to the open passport on the counter, "issued by the United States government." Alice picked it up again, examining the photo. It's a good forgery, I'll give you that. The whole package, but the system doesn't lie. She held up the scanner. This doesn't lie. Behind Serena, the line was growing restless. A man in a cheap suit muttered, "Just arrest her already and let us board." Serena's heart hammered against her ribs. This was escalating far beyond a simple misunderstanding. This was a deliberate, targeted attack. "Alice," Serena said, "you are currently in violation of Global Horizon's own carriage contract. You are denying a confirmed passenger boarding. I demand to speak to your supervisor or the station manager." "Oh, you demand?" Alice's eyes lit up. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. She grabbed the microphone for the gate's PA system. Her voice boomed across the entire seating area, cutting through every conversation. "Attention passengers, we have a security situation here at gate B42. A woman is attempting to board with fraudulent documents." Serena froze. This was a nightmare. Every head in the concourse, hundreds of people, turned to stare at her. She was now a spectacle, a black woman, an alleged criminal, being publicly shamed by a uniformed airline employee. "Ma'am," Alice continued, her voice dripping with fake concern, "I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the podium. You are holding up the boarding process for our legitimate passengers." "I am a legitimate passenger," Serena's control finally snapped. Her voice was sharp, and it carried. "And you are discriminating against me." "Oh, here we go," Alice said, rolling her eyes at the crowd. "Of course, when all else fails, pull the race card. Typical." "I am not pulling anything," Serena seethed. "I am stating a fact. You took one look at me and decided I didn't belong. You haven't done your due diligence. You are incompetent." "Incompetent!" Alice shrieked, genuinely offended. "I'm protecting this airline. I'm protecting you," she shouted at the other passengers, "from people who try to steal their way into luxury. It's a security risk." Alice picked up the phone at her station. "Yes, I need airport security at gate B42. Immediately. I have a 1031, possible fraud, and a hostile passenger." Serena watched, horrified as Alice gave the description. "Yes, female, black, approximately 5'7". "No, she's resisting." "I am not resisting," Serena said, aghast. "I am standing right here." But it was too late. The narrative was set. Alice had painted her as a criminal, and the crowd was eating it up. Phones were out. People were recording. Serena Marshall, a woman who prized her privacy and her dignity above all, was trending on social media before she even knew what was happening. And she knew, with a sinking, icy certainty, that airport security was on its way. The 10-second walk for airport security felt like an eternity. The two officers who arrived were not police, but JFK's own private security. They were large men, and they looked tired, already exasperated by whatever this situation was. "What's the problem here?" the taller officer, name tag Rodriguez, asked, his eyes flicking from Alice to Serena. "This woman," Alice said, pointing a finger, "is trying to board with a fake ticket. Seat 1A, if you can believe it. The code is invalid. She's become hostile and refuses to leave the line. I'm concerned she's a threat." "A threat?" Serena repeated, her voice incredulous. "I'm a threat? I haven't moved from this spot. I haven't raised my voice. She is the one who is hostile." "Ma'am," Rodriguez said, turning to Serena. His tone was one of forced patience. "Can I see your ticket and ID?" "Of course," Serena said. She was relieved at first, a neutral third party. She presented her phone and her passport. "As I've been trying to tell this employee, the QR code isn't scanning, but the confirmation number is right there. I have the confirmation emails. I have the charge on my American Express card." She began to pull up the email, her hands shaking slightly, which made her furious. "See?" Alice interjected. "She's nervous. She knows she's caught." Rodriguez ignored Alice and looked at the phone. He squinted at the passport, then at Serena. "This looks like you," he said, stating the obvious. "It is me," Serena said. "Now, can you please ask her to type in the PNR code?" "Ma'am, our system is our system," Alice cut in, her confidence returning. "If the scanner says no, it means no. I can't just type in a code. That would override the security protocols. For all we know, she's on a watch list." This was a new, terrifying escalation. Being accused of fraud was humiliating. Being painted as a potential terrorist was a life-altering allegation. "That is a slanderous accusation," Serena said, her entire body rigid. "You have crossed a line, Alice. A very, very serious line." "I'm just doing my job," Alice said, crossing her arms. "Ma'am," the second officer, Harris, said, "why don't you just step aside with us, and we can go to the customer service desk and get this sorted out?" "Because my flight is boarding now," Serena said, her patience gone. "I am not moving from this gate. I am a ticketed, confirmed, first-class passenger. I have paid over $20,000 for my seat. I am not going to be sorted out at a customer service desk because your employee is a racist." The word landed. Racist. Alice gasped, clutching her chest in performative shock. "I am not a racist. How dare you? I have black friends." It was so cliché, Serena almost laughed. "I don't care about your friends, Alice. I care about your conduct. You've accused me of fraud, called security on me, and publicly shamed me in front of hundreds of people. You will either type in my code or you will present me with your station manager right now." "Or what?" Alice challenged. "Or you will find yourself at the center of a lawsuit, so massive it will swallow your entire career," Serena said, her voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "And you will drag Global Horizon Air down with you." The threat, so specific and so calmly delivered, actually made Alice pause. She looked at Serena, truly looked at her, and for a second, a flicker of doubt entered her eyes. The woman did sound like a lawyer, but the doubt was quickly replaced by ego. She had an audience. She had security on her side. She had already called this woman a fraud. To back down now would be to admit she was wrong. And Alice Collins was never wrong. "You're threatening me now," Alice said, turning to the security guards. "Did you hear that? She's threatening me." "We're not here for," he said, "she said," Rodriguez grumbled. "Ma'am," he said to Serena, "look, we can do this easy, or we can do this hard. You're causing a disturbance. Either you come with us, or we'll have to escort you." The or else was unsaid but perfectly clear. They would physically remove her. Serena felt a hot, stinging tears of pure rage prick at the back of her eyes. She would not cry. She would not. She looked at the faces in the crowd. Some looked away, ashamed. Others watched with a hungry, morbid curiosity. A few were still filming. "This is unbelievable," Serena said, her voice shaking despite her efforts. "This is your airline. This is how you treat your premium passengers." "You're not a passenger," Alice snapped. "You're a trespasser." She ripped the boarding pass stub, the paper one she had apparently printed just to have a prop, from her printer and tore it in half. "There," Alice said, throwing the pieces on the counter. "You're officially denied boarding. Now get out." Tearing the ticket was the final, theatrical act of dominance. It was so brazen, so utterly contemptuous that Serena was momentarily stunned into silence. And it was into this silence, this tableau of humiliation, Serena frozen, Alice triumphant, the guards preparing to move in and the crowd watching, that a new voice cut through the tension. "What in God's name is going on here?" The voice was male, powerful, and utterly panicked. The crowd parted. Striding through the sea of passengers was a man in a Xenia suit, so perfectly tailored it looked like it had been sewn onto him. He was tall, with silvering hair at the temples, and a face that was usually composed and commanding. Right now, it was pale and beaded with sweat. This was Michael Stratford, the CEO of Global Horizon Air. He was supposed to be on this flight, heading to the London stockholders' meeting. He had been in the private, invitation-only Aura lounge when his assistant, a perpetually terrified young man named David, had shown him a video feed. Not a security feed, a live streaming video from a passenger at gate B42, which was now rocketing around social media with the hashtag #flying while black. He had sprinted from the lounge. Alice Collins's entire demeanor changed. Her aggressive, combative stance melted. She plastered on a look of professional concern, her voice dropping to a reverent, "Everything is under control" tone. "Mr. Stratford?" "Sir," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Thank goodness. I'm so sorry you had to see this. We have a difficult situation. This woman—" "I know what this woman is," Stratford snapped, not even looking at Alice. His eyes were locked on Serena. His expression was one of pure, unadulterated horror. The crowd, sensing a new chapter in the drama, went completely silent. The security guards, Rodriguez and Harris, looked at Stratford and suddenly seemed to realize they were massively out of their depth. They took a half-step back. Alice, misinterpreting Stratford's panic as anger at Serena, felt a surge of validation. The CEO was here. He saw her, Alice, single-handedly protecting his airline. She was going to be a hero. This was her moment. "Sir, this woman, Serena Marshall," Alice continued, eager to deliver the killing blow, "was attempting to board using a fraudulent ticket for the residents, a forgery. I caught it. The scanner rejected it. She became belligerent, started threatening me, pulling the race card. I had to call security." Stratford's face, if possible, went even whiter. He looked at the torn ticket pieces on the counter. He looked at the two looming security guards. He looked at the sea of smartphones recording his every move. And then he looked at Serena, whose face was a mask of cold, controlled fury. He knew exactly who she was. He had spent the last week memorizing her face. This was not just Serena Marshall. This was S.A. Marshall, the mysterious, press-shy principal of Astria Capital, the private equity firm that had, just 3 weeks ago, completed a hostile takeover of a 30% controlling stake in Global Horizon Air, making them the new majority shareholder. This wasn't a passenger. This was his new boss. And his gate agent had just publicly accused her of being a common criminal and torn up her ticket. Stratford felt the floor drop out from beneath him. This was not a customer service issue. This was a lose your job, your pension, and the entire company level of catastrophe. Serena watched him. She recognized him too from the press releases. She saw the dawning, sickening recognition in his eyes. He knew. The entire gate waited for his judgment. Alice stood with her chin high, expecting to be praised. The security guards waited for their orders. The passengers waited for the climax. Stratford had to make a decision. He was trapped. He couldn't dismantle his own employee in front of 100 passengers. It would be chaos and a PR nightmare. But he couldn't possibly side with Alice. He needed to de-escalate. He needed to get Serena out of the spotlight. He took a deep breath. He turned to Serena. His voice was strained. "Ma'am," Michael Stratford said, his voice echoing in the silent terminal. "I am the CEO of this airline, and I'm going to have to ask you to step aside." The crowd gasped. Alice Collins smiled. It was a small, venomous, I won smile. Serena Marshall's heart, which she thought had turned to ice, simply broke. After all of this, after the humiliation and the fight, the man at the very top, the one who knew the truth, was still going to cast her out. She had miscalculated. He was one of them, too. "As you wish, Mr. Stratford," she said, her voice completely dead. The air was thick with a toxic mix of victory and defeat. Alice Collins was practically preening. She moved to gesture Serena away, as if shooing a stray dog. "You heard the man," Alice said, her voice brimming with smug authority. "Get out of the line." "Alice," Michael Stratford said, and the word came out like a razor blade. "Shut your mouth." Alice froze. The smile evaporated. Stratford hadn't taken his eyes off Serena. The public announcement had been a tactical necessity, a verbal smoke screen. Now came the real move. "Ms. Marshall," he said, his voice low and urgent, projecting only to her and the people at the podium. "Please, step aside with me, into the Aura Lounge, right now." The true meaning of his words landed. He wasn't asking her to step aside out. He was asking her to step aside in. It was a brilliant, desperate corporate maneuver. To the crowd, it looked like he was handling a problem. To Serena, it was a plea. Serena's mind, which had been fogged with rage and humiliation, cleared in an instant. She was back in the boardroom. The game was still on. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Stratford sprang into action. He was a CEO again, not a deer in the headlights. He turned to his assistant, David, who was hovering uselessly. "David, get the station manager. Get the head of JFK security. The real ones. Not them." He gestured dismissively at Rodriguez and Harris. "And get me the head of PR. Tell them to meet us in the Aura Lounge 5 minutes ago." He then turned on Alice Collins. His voice was now arctic. "You, give me your badge." Alice's jaw dropped. "What? Sir, I don't understand." "This isn't a negotiation. Your ID, your cider badge. Now." Stratford held out his hand. Numbly like a robot, Alice unclipped the badge from her blazer. The plastic snapped in the silence. She handed it to him. "You will go with David," Stratford commanded, "to the station manager's office. You will not speak to anyone. You will not touch a terminal. You will not use your phone. You will wait for me. Do you understand?" But the flight," Alice stammered, looking at the line of passengers. "This flight isn't going anywhere," Stratford boomed. He snatched the gate microphone. "Attention, passengers for Flight 110. This is Michael Stratford, CEO of Global Horizon Air. Due to a critical customer service incident, this flight is now indefinitely delayed. We will be deplaning the passengers already on board. All passengers will be given meal and hotel vouchers. We sincerely apologize. A full update will be forthcoming." A collective groan erupted from the entire concourse. He had just grounded his own flagship flight. The financial cost, fuel, crew time, rebooking, hotels would be astronomical. He clicked off the mic and threw it down. He didn't care. The plane was the least of his problems. He turned to the 2 security officers. "You two, you're with me. I want your full report. Now." Rodriguez and Harris exchanged a panicked look. Finally, Stratford turned back to Serena. All the anger and command drained from his face, replaced by a desperate, pleading civility. "Ms. Marshall," he said, gesturing toward the polished ebony doors of the private lounge just 20 feet away. "After you." Serena looked at the torn pieces of her boarding pass on the counter. She looked at the stunned, pale face of Alice Collins, who looked like she'd been hit by a truck. She looked at the hundreds of baffled passengers. Without a word, she smoothed her blouse, picked up her travel wrap, and swept past the CEO, through the private doors, and into the silent, opulent sanctuary of the Aura Lounge. The heavy door clicked shut behind her, sealing off the chaos of the terminal. The reckoning had begun. The Aura Lounge was a world away. It was all muted greys, brushed bronze, and the scent of expensive orchids. A single, silent attendant stood by a marble bar, looking terrified. Michael Stratford burst through the door a second after Serena, followed by the 2 security guards. "Ma'am, water? Champagne?" the attendant whispered. "Water," Serena said, her voice a croak. She hadn't realized how dry her throat was. Stratford, meanwhile, was pacing. "Get out!" he yelled at the attendant. "Clear the lounge, now!" The attendant fled. He turned to Serena, his hands clasped in front of him, as if in prayer. "Ms. Marshall, S.A. Marshall, I do not have the words to express my apology. I saw the video, but to see it in person..." Serena sat down in a plush velvet armchair. She took a sip of the water that had magically appeared. She said nothing. She just watched him. The silence was her weapon now. That woman," Stratford stammered. "Alice Collins. She's been here for years. I had no idea. She will be terminated, obviously. Her employment is over, effective immediately. We will prosecute if you wish. Anything. Just name it." Serena finally looked up at him. Her eyes were cold. "You're firing her," Serena stated. It wasn't a question. "Of course, immediately, without severance." "That's easy," Serena said, her voice quiet. "Firing Alice is a press release. It's damage control. You're not fixing the problem. You're just hiding the evidence." "What? No, Stratford fumbled. "Mr. Stratford," Serena leaned forward. "What you just witnessed at Gate B42 was not an isolated incident. It was not one bad apple. It was a symptom. It was a symptom of a corporate culture so rotten that a frontline employee felt emboldened to publicly humiliate, slander, and attempt to have a passenger arrested, all because she didn't look like she belonged in Setuane." She paused, letting the words sink in. She felt safe doing it. She looked at the other passengers for support, and she got it. She looked at security for backup, and she got it. She even looked at you, her CEO, and for one terrifying moment, she thought she had your support too. Stratford had the decency to wince. The step aside. It was a tactic. I had to get you out of there. "I know what it was," Serena interrupted. "It was a panic move. But what she thought it was a victory. That's the rot, Michael, and it's on you." The doors to the lounge opened. The station manager, a harried-looking man named Jim, entered, followed by a pale, trembling David. And between them, Alice Collins. Alice's face was a mess of tears and confusion. She clearly still didn't understand the magnitude of what had happened. She thought she was here to tell her side of the story to the big boss. The second she saw Serena, sitting in the lounge's best chair like a queen on her throne, Alice's narrative began to crumble. "Mr. Stratford," Alice began, her voice wet with tears. "Sir, I don't know what's going on. That woman was a fake. The ticket was invalid. I was just doing my job." Stratford looked at her with such undisguised loathing that Alice took a step back. "Your job?" Stratford's voice was a low growl. "Your job, Alice, was to verify passengers, not to play God." "David," he barked at his assistant. "Yes, sir. Pull up the PNR for Ms. Marshall. Read it." David's fingers flew over his tablet. "Yes, sir. PNR is HZ44-5KL. Passenger, Serena A. Marshall. Seat 1A, the residence. Ticket is a CO bus code. Booked through the executive partner portal. Oh. Oh, what, David? Serena asked, her voice calm. David looked like he was going to be sick. The ticket isn't just valid, it's flagged. Astria Capital. Handle with extreme care. Greet on arrival. Escort to plane. It's a VIP 0 flag. Silence. Alice's face went from pale to a ghastly, greenish white. A VIP 0 flag, Michael Stratford repeated, his voice shaking with rage. Our system didn't reject your scan, Alice. It flagged it for manual verification. It was telling you that this was an important passenger. You were supposed to welcome her. You were supposed to alert the station manager. You were supposed to get her an escort. Instead, Serena said, standing up, you called me a criminal. You tore up my ticket. And you tried to have me put on a watch list. I didn't know, Alice wailed. The scanner, it made the noise. It always makes the noise for a problem. I thought. You thought what, Alice? Serena advanced on her, her patience finally gone. That a black woman couldn't possibly be in Sit 1, eh? That she couldn't possibly have paid for it? You didn't think. You assumed. You didn't look at my passport. You didn't look at my confirmation email. You looked at me, and you made a decision. You wanted to humiliate me. You enjoyed it. No, please. Alice was openly sobbing now, a desperate, ugly sound. Please, Mr. Stratford, I have kids. I have a mortgage. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. This wasn't a mistake, Stratford said, his voice void of all emotion. This was a choice. You made dozens of choices. Every time you escalated, you made a choice. Every time you ignored her, you made a choice. Tearing up that ticket, that was a choice. He turned to the station manager. Jim, get her out of here. Escort her to HR. She is terminated for cause. Gross misconduct. Violation of passenger rights. Endangering the brand. Take your pick. She is to be escorted off the property. Her access is revoked. And I want a full audit of her employee file. Every complaint. Every incident. On my desk by the time I land in London. Please! Alice shrieked as the security guards, Rodriguez and Harris, who had been standing by the door looking like they wanted to be invisible, moved to take her arms. You can't do this. I've been here 12 years. 12 years. And you've been a liability for every single one of them, Stratford said. As they dragged her to the door, Alice had one last, venomous burst of energy. She wrenched her arm free and pointed a shaking finger at Serena. You did this. You think you're so special? You bitch. You ruined my life. Serena just looked at her. No, Alice. You ruined your own. The guards grabbed her, and this time they didn't let go. She was hauled out of the lounge, her sobs echoing down the hall, until the heavy door clicked shut again, leaving a deafening silence in her wake. The room was still. Michael Stratford slumped into the chair opposite Serena. He looked like he had aged 10 years. Well, he said, rubbing his face, she's gone. The immediate threat is neutralized. Serena took a slow sip of her water. You still don't get it, do you? Stratford looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. What? What don't I get? She's fired. I'm grounding the flight. I'm accommodating every passenger. This is going to cost us millions. That's just money, Serena said. It's the cost of doing business. The harder karma isn't just about what happens to Alice. What do you mean? I mean, Serena said, that the two security guards, Rodriguez and Harris, who threatened to escort me, are still standing outside that door. I want them fired. Stratford balked. But they work for the airport, not for us. They're Port Authority subcontractors. I don't care who they work for, Serena said. They escalated the situation. They sided with the aggressor. They threatened a ticketed passenger. They are a liability. Your airline has contracts with this airport and its vendors. You will inform the Port Authority that those 2 men are a security risk and that Global Horizon will not operate from any gate they are assigned to. You will use your leverage, or I'll use mine." Stratford swallowed. He nodded. "David," he said to his assistant, "get on the phone with the PA's head of operations. Tell him exactly that." "Yes, sir," David squeaked, and ran out. "That's 2, Serena said. "Now what about the station manager?" "Jim. What about Jim?" Stratford asked, confused. "He just got here." "Exactly," Serena said. "Where was he?" "That was a 5-alarm fire at his gate for 15 minutes. A critical customer service incident, as you called it. His star employee was melting down, and he was nowhere to be found. Is he incompetent or just lazy? Why did you, the CEO, have to sprint from a lounge to handle a gate issue?" Stratford had no answer. "You're not just firing Alice," Serena continued. "You're cleaning house. Jim is on probation, effective immediately. I want a full review of his team's performance, their response times, and their complaint logs." "Yes." "Okay. Jim on probation." "And then there's the PR," Serena said, pulling out her own phone. She hadn't looked at it this whole time. She clicked it on. The screen lit up with a wildfire of notifications, missed calls, hundreds of texts, and the trending topics. Global Horizon Air, flying while black. Gate B422, Alice Collins. "Oh, good," Serena said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "They got her name." She clicked on one of the videos. It was the one from the passenger in line behind her. It was high quality. It had captured everything. The "you" people. The pulling the race card. The tearing of the ticket. And the audio was crystal clear. It had 1.2 million views. She turned the phone around and showed it to Michael. Stratford watched the 60-second clip, and all the remaining color drained from his face. He looked at the comments. "I'm cutting up my Global Horizon card. Unacceptable. You people? In 2025? Fire her now. Global Horizon Air, you've got 24 hours to respond, or I'm cancelling my 100K mile booking. That's Alice Collins at JFK. I've had her before. She's a known racist. Glad someone finally caught her." "My God," Stratford whispered. It's catastrophic." "There's that word again," Serena said. "It's not catastrophic, Michael. It's a crisis. And in every crisis, there is an opportunity." "An opportunity. Our stock is going to open in London in 3 hours. We're going to be decimated." "Exactly," Serena said. "We are. Which is why your 'firing Alice' press release isn't going to cut it. You're not going to investigate. You're not going to review. You are going to go out there, to that gate, which is now full of passengers who have your undivided attention, and you are going to get on that microphone." "And say what?" he pleaded. "You are going to tell them the truth. You are going to say, Global Horizon Air has failed. We failed our passenger. We failed our standards. An employee, backed by a culture of bias we allowed to fester, racially profiled and humiliated a customer. This is not an incident. It is a revelation. And as of today, we are changing, not just our policies, our people. You are going to apologize, Michael. Not a corporate non-apology, a real one. You're going to tell them you are ashamed." He looked at her, his mind reeling. No CEO had ever done that. It was career suicide. "And if I don't," he whispered. "If you don't," Serena said, "I will. As the representative of your largest shareholder, I will call an emergency press conference. I will get on that microphone. And the first thing I will do is announce my search for a new CEO." The hard karma wasn't just for Alice. It was for the whole system. And Michael Stratford was now, officially, on the clock. He had a choice. Be the man who cleans the house, or be the first piece of trash swept out. "Okay," he said, standing up. He straightened his Xenia jacket. He looked for the first time like the leader he was supposed to be. "Okay, I'll do it. But what about you? What about me? The flight, the meeting?" We're not going to London," Serena said. "We're staying right here. The meeting can be done on Zoom. Our work is at JFK. We're going to set up a temporary command center in this lounge, and we are going to start the audit. Right now." The harder karma wasn't a single act of revenge. It was a complete and total reckoning, starting from the ground up, and it was going to be televised. Michael Stratford felt the lounge's heavy door click shut behind him, and for a moment he was in a vacuum. He could feel his heart hammering against his ribs. He wasn't just a CEO. He was a man walking to his own execution, or perhaps his salvation. His entire career, his reputation, the future of the airline he had spent 20 years building. It all came down to the next 5 minutes. He knew, with sickening certainty, that this moment was already being broadcast from a dozen phones. The board in London wasn't just waking up. They were probably in an emergency session without him. He pushed through the door. The atmosphere at Gate B402 was no longer just confused. It was a mob. Passengers from Flight 110 were everywhere, mixed with curious onlookers from other gates. They were angry, they were tired, and they were all filming. The air crackled with hostility. He walked to the podium, the same one where Alice Collins had held her court. He saw the torn pieces of Serena's boarding pass still littering the counter. He picked up the microphone. The feedback shrieked, and the crowd winced. "Good evening," he began. His voice was amplified, and it trembled, but he didn't try to hide it. "My name is Michael Stratford, and I am the CEO of this airline." A murmur went through the crowd. Phones were raised higher. "A few minutes ago, at this very gate," he continued, his voice gaining a hard, pained edge, one of my employees, engaged in an act of blatant, undeniable racism." A collective hush. The angry muttering stopped, replaced by stunned, focused silence. She racially profiled, harassed, and publicly humiliated a passenger. She accused her of fraud, slandered her, and tore up her valid, fully paid, first-class ticket. "I am here to tell you, I am here to confess that the passenger was Ms. Serena Marshall." He paused, and someone in the crowd shouted, "So what?" "You're right," Michael said, pointing to the man. "So what? I was about to tell you that Ms. Marshall is a partner at Astria Capital and, as of 3 weeks ago, is the primary representative of this airline's new ownership. She is, in effect, my boss." Gasps rippled through the concourse. People who had been filming Alice's side of the story, who had muttered, "Just arrest her," now looked at the ground, their faces pale. "But," Michael shouted, his voice cracking with emotion, "but that should not matter. It is not the point. It is, in fact, the problem. It shouldn't matter if Ms. Marshall was the owner or a passenger flying for the very first time on a discount ticket. The treatment she received was a catastrophic failure. A failure of our company, a failure of our culture, and a failure of my leadership. There are no excuses. I am not here to make them." He looked directly into the camera of a woman in the front row who was live streaming. "The employee who did this, Alice Collins, has been terminated, effective immediately." But this is not about one bad apple. This is about the orchard. This is about a culture that allowed this to happen, that emboldened her, that made her feel she was right. Inside the lounge, Serena watched, her face unreadable. He was doing it. He was actually doing it. As of today, Michael's voice boomed, I am personally overseeing a top-to-bottom audit of our entire customer-facing operation. We are not just retraining. That's a word corporations use to hide. We are rebuilding. We will be decentralizing power from frontline employees who abuse it, and we are implementing a passenger-first system of checks and balances. We will be creating an independent civilian oversight board for passenger complaints, a board with real power to fire and to fine, and I am asking Ms. Marshall to be its first chairperson. And to all of you, he said, gesturing to the entire stranded passenger list, you were failed. You were witnesses to our shame. Your flight is cancelled, but you are part of this. We will be rebooking all of you, of course, but more than that, we will be upgrading every single one of you to first class on your next round-trip flight. And for this trip, we are issuing a full 100% cash refund to every passenger. No vouchers, cash, because you shouldn't have to pay in any way for our failure. This, finally, changed the air. The anger was replaced by stunned disbelief. A few people even began to applaud, slowly at first, then with more confidence. I am ashamed, he said, his voice finally breaking. I am deeply, personally ashamed that this happened on my watch. I am the CEO, and this rot, it stops tonight. I promise you, I will not rest until it is cut out. Thank you. He put the microphone down. The terminal was silent, but it was a different silence. It was the silence of a bomb being defused. He walked back into the lounge, his Xenia suit soaked with sweat. He looked at Serena. How was that? Serena was already on her laptop. The lounge, in the 10 minutes he was gone, had transformed. David, his assistant, had wheeled in a cart with 3 other laptops, a printer, and a massive pot of coffee. It was no longer a lounge, it was a war room. It was a good start, Serena said, not looking up. Now the real work begins. While you were giving your speech, I pulled the employee files for this entire terminal. She turned her laptop to face him. It was a spreadsheet. Alice Collins had 19 red flag passenger complaints against her in the last 2 years. 12 for rude behavior, 7 for aggressive conduct, and 4 that explicitly used the word racist. All of them were dismissed. Dismissed? By whom? Michael asked, horrified. By the station manager. Jim. Serena clicked a button on her keyboard. A video call began to ring. He was not just lazy, Michael. He was complicit. He was protecting her. He was part of the rot. The call connected. The face of Jim, the station manager, appeared. He was at home, sitting in a messy living room with a beer in his hand. He looked annoyed. This better be good, Jim slurred. It's my night off. What, did someone miss a flight? Serena's voice was arctic. Mr. Peterson, this is Serena Marshall, with Astria Capital. Jim's face sobered up instantly. He sat up. Oh, Ms. Marshall, I'm so sorry I didn't... Save it, Jim, Serena said. I'm calling to inform you of your immediate termination for cause. Your services are no longer required at Global Horizon Air. Jim's jaw dropped. What? Termination? You can't. That's a union-protected job. You can't just fire me. I'll fight this. Will you? Serena asked, her voice dangerously calm. Will you fight it with the evidence I'm looking at? I have 12 separate passenger complaints of racial bias at your gates, all of which you personally marked as unfounded. Passenger being difficult, or employee followed protocol. All of them against the same employee, the one who just cost this company over $10 million in a single night. I was following procedure, Jim stammered. It's her word against theirs. Alice is a good employee, a bit rough, but she's loyal. She's a liability, and you're an accomplice, Serena said. And that's just the passenger-facing side. I'm also looking at 3 separate formal harassment complaints filed by flight attendants against a senior pilot. Complaints you buried, complaints you never escalated to HR, in direct violation of state, federal, and company law. Jim's face went from red to a ghostly white. That, Serena knew, was the real killer. You can't prove that, he whispered. I don't have to, Jim. Our new outside legal counsel will. Your union can't protect you from grosser negligence and illegal conduct. Your career at Global Horizon is over. Our legal team will be in touch regarding the lawsuits. Do not contact any current employees. Goodbye. She ended the call, plunging the screen into darkness. She looked at Michael. He was staring at her with a mixture of terror and awe. The hard karma, Michael, she said, finally taking a sip of the now cold water, isn't just about punishment. It's about justice. Alice Collins lost her job. That's a tragedy for her family, one she brought on herself. But the justice is ensuring that no one like Alice and no one like Jim is ever in that position of power again. The justice is rebuilding the system so that the next Serena Marshall, the one who isn't the new owner, can get on her flight without a fight. For the next 12 hours they didn't sleep. They drank burnt coffee and ordered a full-scale audit of the entire company's HR and complaint procedures. They brought in an outside discrimination-focused law firm. They fired 3 more executives in the customer service division who, it turned out, knew about the JFK problem and had actively hidden it to protect their bonuses. By 7 a.m., as the sun rose over a new day at JFK, Global Horizon Air was trending for a new reason. Michael Stratford's speech, posted by the airline itself, had gone viral. It was being called the apology. The stock, which they expected to crash, had dipped and then stabilized. Commentators were calling it the most radical act of corporate honesty in a decade. Serena finally boarded the next flight to London, 12 hours late. She sat in seat 1A. The new gate agent, a young woman who looked terrified, couldn't have been more polite. "Ms. Marshall," she'd said, her voice shaking. "Welcome. May I get you a water? An escort to the plane?" "Thank you," Serena said with a small smile. "I can find my way." As the plane took off, Serena looked out the window. She hadn't come here to start a revolution. She had just wanted to get to her meeting, but the world had other plans, and if she had to, she would burn the old world down to build a better one. The fall of Alice Collins was swift, but the real change at Global Horizon Air was just beginning. Serena's journey shows that karma isn't just about one person getting what they deserve. It's about tearing down the entire rotten system that let them do it in the first place. What Alice thought was a fake ticket was actually a ticket to a brand new reality for the whole company. What do you think? Was this karma deserved? Have you ever seen someone so arrogant get taken down in public? Let us know your own story of workplace justice in the comments below. We read every single one. And if you enjoyed this story of justice, please do us a huge favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Be sure to share this video with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories. We post new videos every week, and you don't want to miss the next one.